Hey guys, we are back with an intuitive watercolor project. So what I've done here with this piece of paper is I've drawn just a straight line. I've used my ruler, and you don't have to be fiddly with it and get it exactly in the middle if you don't want to, just somewhere about the middle, and just a really quick little swipe. We don't want it too dark because what we're going to do is we're going to use that as our horizon line. So I want you to take a moment and grab an eraser. Anyone will do, one that's on your pencil or one of these poly erasers. I love them. And you're just going to kind of take away the bulk of that line. Not completely get rid of it because you still want to be able to see something of the horizon line. But and we'll definitely paint over it. But if you're worried about it peeking through, you can totally go in and erase it, or not. If you don't care about that kind of stuff, it's totally up to you. But I like to kind of lighten it a little bit. Okay, so here are the things that we're going to need after we have erased the bulk of our line. So we're going to need our clean water in our little spritz bottle, 2 cups of clean water, and the brushes we're using today are the flat brush and a round brush like this. Also, if you have one, grab your tiny little detail brush, something this small. This is from a different kind of watercolor set, but something like this even is totally fine for some of the detail work we're going to do later, as long as it has a nice point on it. Now, onto the colors we're going to be using in this project. We're going to use 4 this time. We're going to be using our Prussian blue, our Viridian hue green, and then this wonderful yellow ochre. Okay, and then later on, just for some accents, we're going to use our cadmium orange. Okay, and this is going back to our color wheel. Basically, what we're using are complementary colors and then one contrast color. So blue is complementary to green, that's complementary to yellow. But you're also going to notice this yellow isn't like a super bright yellow or a cool yellow. It has more muddy tones to it. So it's got a little brown in there. So when we mix it on our palette, and on our palette knife rather, we use our palette knife, which is the bulk of what we'll be using to spread our paint around, is our palette knife. You're going to notice that when it blends, it can provide some more brownish hues, which is great for what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be doing a horizon kind of inspirational abstract project with just a lot of wet on wet technique. And a palette knife. So here's our yellow ochre. We don't need a ton of it. You're going to see we don't need a ton, just a teeny bit. Definitely going to need more blue than yellow, and more green than yellow. So, and there's our Viridian. And I'd like for you to keep that blue and then yellow and then green. And there's a reason for that. I want to, like I said, when you mix this yellow in with some of these colors, it can get muddy. So we want to use just a dab of yellow each time we put our palette knife in. So again, that's Viridian on the end, yellow ochre in the middle, and then your Prussian blue at the end. You could also use a turquoise if you want, but that's totally up to you. I prefer the Prussian blue. And when it mixes all together, you're going to see it just looks stunning. And again, like I said before, these are all complementary colors. All right, so what we're going to start with on the page, so we've marked our horizon line. We're going to take our squirt bottle, our little spritzy bottle, and we're not going to necessarily spritz right on the line. We're going to do everything from the line up to the top, but we're going to start at the top and work our way down, okay, being aware of that line. And then I just want you to take a clean, damp wash brush and just kind of smush that water into the page. We're making kind of a damp, it's not super puddly yet. We're just kind of getting it smushed into the cotton. All right, and make sure to get your edges. I'm terrible about this. I always forget. So if you want a more edge-to-edge look, make sure to get around the tape. And also, just a note about the tape. I do double, not just tape it once, but I tape it twice, and I'll show you why in a little bit. So here, we're getting right along that horizon line with a little bit more water. This is when you take your wash brush, and you just kind of, in that right corner, and right along that line, the right bottom corner, I want you to add more water. And this will make sense in a minute. But just make sure that's nice and puddly right there in that corner and right along the horizon line, okay? Everything below it is dry though. So it's important that we leave that alone. Okay. And don't be afraid to add, add water to this thing. Will your page warp a little bit? Yeah, totally. But you can straighten that out pretty easily afterwards. After it's dry, put a book on top of it for 24 hours and it'll be flat as a pancake. Okay, so I am taking my palette knife here and I had to dip it in some water and clean it off from a previous project. So you want a clean one. Okay, so there's our clean knife, yay. And what I want you to do is take your blue and rub it in there a little bit. So I'm rubbing it on that edge. And then I want to get yellow right in the middle, just a little bit, not a ton, and get that viridian hue, okay? So you're going to see as soon as I put this on the page that yellow really stands out. So that's why I say we only do a tiny bit in the middle. Look at this. Woo! Oh, that is so satisfying. You see how the colors run? I love that. And so we're not making a complete straight horizon. And by the way, I'm taking the front and the back of my palette knife. So if you got more paint on the front and back and you want to get rid of it, which I hate wasting paint, so I try to do that, just flip it over. We're kind of leaving a spot in the middle of the horizon. We're not painting it straight across like a straight line, because we want to give the paint room to move, so, and go where it wants to go. Okay, so we're going to set that to the side now. And what we're going to do is, now you can see both sides. All right, so that's a beautiful like marking that we have on the page there. So we're going to take that spritzer bottle, and we're, it's pretty damp already. So we're just loosening that up, and we're just going to tilt. We're going to tilt, and we're going to let things move around. Tilt it however you want it. Okay, oh, look at this. I love how things move, especially when it looks like that, where it's like really dispersed and cloudy. That's so fun. All right, just keep moving it around, you guys, and however you'd like for the sky to look. I love how much this moves. And so I want you to notice something with me. I didn't love this corner. So what I did was just grab my spritzer bottle and very lightly, not like a ton, because it'll take most of the paint off your page if you do it too much. But just very lightly and cautiously got that paint moving again in that dry square. So remember I told you I have a bad habit of not painting all the way or getting water all the way to the edges? That's, yes, exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so right now I'm super happy with how that sky looks. But the only thing that bothers me a little bit is on the edge. The water has collected a little bit, so I'm just gonna press on that real lightly right along the edge of the paint, the paint tape. Basically, and this is why I say to do a double tape, because what's great is instead of that water catching under that first layer of tape, because you've put a second layer there, it'll catch under the second layer of tape. Oh, look how gorgeous that is. Oh, I love it. So now we're going to move on to the bottom of our page. And we're going to pretty much do the same thing we did to the top of it. We're going to start down at the bottom and kind of work our way up towards the horizon. The same thing, just kind of flip it. So we worked from the top to the horizon. Now we're working from the bottom to the horizon line. But just be aware, and we're going to do the same thing. We're working up, but we're not actually going to hit that horizon line. We're actually going to leave a strip of it pretty dry in the middle here. Okay, so just do that. And again, we're just working that water in, okay? And make it as puddly as you want. Get some more water, especially where you think you're going to put your land. So what we're creating now is kind of like a bank of a lake or a river or something. And like I said, this is intuitive. So you paint what you see, but I'm going to tell you where to put your marks down with your palette knife. So again, I want you to go in, and this time we're going to use a little more viridian than blue, viridian green, and a little more yellow, okay? Put a tiny bit of blue on that corner, but again, this is more about the green and the blue down here. All right, and so, oh yes, look at that. Yes, I love it. So don't worry if it's really, really like strong in certain areas and then it's, beautifully diluted in others. We're going to go through and kind of just mess with things. Okay. So now you can see kind of in my mind, the picture I want to see is like, a bank right here and some more grass and stuff over here. I'm going to go back in with a little more green, a little more yellow. Okay. Because I want to have a real strong bank line over here. Okay. And again, guys, this is totally intuitive. You don't have to do exactly what I did. If there's a different picture that you're seeing in your mind, maybe your bank doesn't extend all the way up the left side like mine does. Maybe it stops on the right and it's just water from there on. It's totally up to you. But this is kind of what I'm seeing in my mind. Okay, and see how that moves around so much? We got a ton of water in there. And if you don't like it, you can always go in with a little paper towel and just dab it up a little bit. No big deal. So what I'm going to do now that's moving around, there's a lot of water on the page. I'm not necessarily going to spritz it again yet. I'm just going to move it around. I'm just going to move around what's there. Let it drip, let it run. And again, look at all those yummy textures. Okay. And look, even the top's running a little bit. And see how it's not coming down past that line though, really? Because we have that dry strip underneath. So it's kind of protecting the top from the bottom and vice versa. But this is cool because now we can make the top run again, which is neat. Gives it another new balance, another new layer of interesting effects. So this is beautiful. I love this right here. Let's see. Let me see how much more I can make it run. Because I never know when to stop. Isn't that always the struggle, ladies and gentlemen? All right, so I think here's where we're gonna just give this one more nice little nudge up top here. Yeah, I think I need to start wiping up my edges a little bit. Yep, there we go. Just because I don't need a super harsh line. It's okay if there's a little bit of a line there. Obviously, we've got it taped, so there will be a border. But I want it to be a little more diffused. Okay, so we've got this beautiful grass now set up, okay? So the space between the horizon and my grassy area is where I want my water to be. Okay, so now I'm gonna take my palette knife. I'm gonna clean it off real good. It's okay if it has a little extra paint on there. Just that little bit's negligible, really. So just rinse that off, dry it off real good. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna add our water in the dry space. Okay, it might be a tiny bit damp. If it is, not a big deal, but I do want it to be mostly dry where you start adding the blue. Okay, and we're using just a little bit of that Prussian blue with our palette knife. And you can see in certain spots it's damp and in certain spots it's dry because of the texture of the paint. Okay, so that looks nice. I think that's pretty good. All right. So again, I want you to tilt it towards the sky a little bit because we don't want it to run right into the grass. So there we go. And you might have little sections where, see where that bled into the two sections? Leave it. We'll move it around in a minute. Don't be too worried about it, okay? So, ooh, this is nice. These are fun. All right. And so, if you have too much, just wipe it up with your little paper towel. No big deal. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to smooth it out a little bit with remember that round brush we talked about earlier rather? That's what we're going to use now. So we're going to take a clean, damp round brush and we're just moving those colors around. Just moving them around. And again, not losing sight of where our horizon is, okay? Okay, as I've been looking at the horizon, I've realized that where I want the water to be is now green. So what I'm going to do as I'm moving this water around, I'm going to take my brush and rinse it off. And while it's still, I'll dry it off pretty good. But this is the lifting technique that we learned in a previous class, if you were there with me. But for folks that are new, what you can do when you have a medium that's still pretty damp or wet, you clean off a brush, dry it on your paper towel, and then you go back in and just pick up the wet paint that you don't want on the page. It's just so fun. So this is called lifting, all right? And I want the water to come down pretty far. So you can see I'm going back in. I'm leaving the more vivid spots of green, but the washy kind of pale stuff that was up into where I want the water, I'm cleaning that up. And what I'm doing now with just a little tiny bit of that Prussian blue and a little bit of water, because this is pretty damp, so I'm not having to use a ton of water at this point to move colors around. I'm just adding some blue in there here and there. And again, I think I need a little less green and a little more blue. So I'm going to go back in with my clean, dryish brush and sweep up any of that extra washy green that I'm not a super huge fan of in this moment. Because again, this is totally intuitive. I feel like I want the water to be a little more opaque and to come down a little further, closer to the sides and bottom of the page. Because we have this stunning horizon, and I don't want to mess with that. Okay. And again, this is all by touch and by feel. You guys can do whatever you like. And now, this is one of my favorite things. Because it's water, I want to add a little salt to give it a little dimension, a little, I don't know, another texture like ripples or something on the water. Okay. And that's a pretty damp page. So it should create some fun little flecks. And now I love this little section of the horizon, but I feel like it could be a little stronger in color. So what I'm doing is I'm adding a little more Prussian blue and really a tiny touch of Prussian and Viridian. Okay, ought to do it. And I want to give this a little more oomph right on the horizon, because it's one of the focal points of the picture. So really we want it to be beautiful and strong and have a lot of fun textures to it. So I'm just doing that. I'm letting it move as it will. And I may or may not, I think I will. I'm going to come back in and spritz it just a tiny bit. And it's going to move just a little bit further up the page. Okay. You don't have to do this, but again, because we're using so much water and things are moving so much, sometimes you have to go back in and give it a little more pigment, which is totally fine. And again, because it's so damp, it's really easy to work with. So moving that, I want it to be more diffused at the top. I don't love just drips. So I typically let it move around on its own for a while and see if it'll diffuse completely. But that corner of the page is a little drier than it needs to be. So again, just going to go in and spritz it a little bit, not a ton, just to where it'll move, because I don't want all the paint to come off the page. There we go. I can live with that. That's nice. Okay, and again, just kind of let it drip. The extras come down and just wipe it up. And again, be aware of those edges. Okay, that looks gorgeous. Ooh, I love this. Okay, this is making me very happy. Okay, so you see automatically there's much more depth. All right. Okay, and my salt is still there. It's moved around a little bit on the page, but it should still create some fun texture. So I'm going to put a little more on there just to see what happens. Okay, and you know the drill. I'm impatient, so here comes the hairdryer. Okay, so oops, I'm blowing everything all over the page. And look how that has dried down with the dryer. So this is where you might panic and go, oh, where'd all my beautiful colors go? Well, when it's dry and you've gotten all the salt off the page, look at those fun little pockets of texture. I want you to take your spritzer bottle, spritz it where you want to apply some more color, and then take your palette knife and like I said before, take it through a little more Viridian green and yellow ochre than blue, but it's totally fine to put some blue in there. As you can see, I have some on there on my palette knife, and just go back in where you want to recreate structure or just give some nice pops of color and just start laying that down, okay? No big deal. If you want lots of color, that's totally fine. I love lots of color, especially when we're talking about like creating like a foreground versus a background. Always those are going to be, your foreground's going to be brighter, as it should be anyways, because that's where you want to draw attention to. So just keep working through that with your palette knife till you're happy with it. Okay, and what I usually do at this point is I will take my spritzer bottle and I'm just going to like do a light spritz until it starts to move a little bit on the page. Just want to see where it goes. So you can start moving it around if you want at this point, like tilting, but what I like to do is take my detail brush and I'm going to go through and I'm going to create some beautiful little strips of grass. Some of those high grasses that you see on like riverbanks and on the seagrass next to the ocean. You don't have to specify which it is. It could be a lake, it could be the ocean. But oh my goodness, creamy, dreamy, gorgeous, dispersed little blades of grass. Gives it so much more life. Now, you can go in also and get extra paint from your palette, or you can just use the paint that's on the page since you just laid down a bunch. And that's typically what I do first. And then I can go back in. I'll go back in sometimes and put more paint down on the page with the detail brush. But typically I like to use what's already there. Once I've looked at what I've already used as far as paint on the page, and I might want to see a little more, I go back with that Prussian blue, that the Viridian green, and I just want to use little pops of color here and there, strands, and grass doesn't always blow to one side, sometimes it's all over the place. So I kind of like giving my grass kind of a wild look. And again, this is still kind of damp on the page, so it's going to run a little bit and diffuse, which is really nice. And you might want to go back in with some Prussian blue or more Viridian. It's really up to you, just wherever you think it needs a little more detail. And again, this is where you go, do I stop here? Do I keep going? It's so hard, especially with intuitive stuff, which honestly, this is a lot more forgiving, this style of watercolors, which I love. This is why I love doing it, especially when I'm just hankering to get some practice in. This is a great way to put water and paint on a page and see how it moves around. So what I would do next at this point is I probably would hit it with a hairdryer, and because that's going to be imperative for what we're doing next. And here we go. I'm going to dry it real quick with this hairdryer, and it is always so fun to watch like how things dry down, because it's always a different image than you have right in front of your face when you're painting it. So here it's dry. Like I said, this is going to be really important for what we're doing next. So once you've got it, and look at all that texture. Oh, look at the grass where it kind of faded in and out. This is so fun. So what I like to do is take an X-Acto knife. And I don't do this with every picture. I do like to do it when I have water, if it's appropriate. And I think this might be appropriate because I also like to, like I said, I like different textures and different like dimensions on a page. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your X-Acto knife, and I want you to start in the water, and all you're doing is scraping across the page, okay? And you're creating little ripples of light in the water. Now this is kind of a gray day. It looks like a pretty gray day. So we're just doing light ripples in the water, and you can see it just starts to add another dimension to what you're seeing. And I don't do it all over the page. I just do it kind of in like here or there. I kind of think that in my imagination, because you see that golden little spot in the sky over there, that's where the sun is in my imagination. So that's where I'm doing a tighter collection of these little ripples. The dying light of the day is over there. And there's a little bit over here. Just use your discretion. And again, because the water isn't like super dark, you're not going to see it a ton in this example, but if you have a really dark sea, as soon as you start working with those X-Acto knife ripples, you really will see it, because it's basically just ripping up your paper. I know we all say, egads, crazy woman, why are you ripping up your paper? But this actually is just a fun way to create ripples in texture. So, and it's actually, there's a term for it. It's called sgraffito. Hope I said that right, sgraffito. So again, just going through where I think I might need a little extra oomph. And the other thing that I like to do with my X-Acto knife, especially with grasses, is sometimes I'll go in and create like little blades of grass with my knife too. Like just to, again, you don't want everything to like meld together. And maybe you do, you could totally do it like that. But I like to give, again, something interesting to look at. It's so fun. So someone would go, oh, wow, those are actually blades of grass. That's really neat. And it's done by ripping the paper, just a totally different technique. But again, all up to you. You may just want to skip that entirely, but there is a way to add more texture in your paintings with an X-Acto knife. As we finish our X-Acto knife grass blades, I'd like you to take your spritzer bottle and your cadmium orange. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this complementary color to our blue, our green, and our yellow. Blue and orange are directly across the color wheel from each other, so they're a complementary match. Now, if you use blue and orange together, you're going to get a neutral color, and that's what happens with complementary colors. They complement one another. They look really good next to each other, but sometimes they might cast a little bit of a brown if they touch too much, or just get really muddy. So, but what I want you to do is spritz your page just where the grass is, just a little bit. You don't want to get it too wet. We just want a little bit of spritz because we want this orange to move but not disappear completely. So there we go. See, ooh. And orange, because it has yellow in it, also is complementary to green, which is really nice. Isn't that lovely how that works? Color and science is really cool. But that, I keep saying complementary. The contrasting color for blue is orange. And they're directly across. They look so wonderful together. And then you have like 3 complementary colors and then throw in a contrast. Oh, superb. And that's why I wanted to do the orange today, because we have a lot of blues and greens going on. There you go. And again, just add it wherever you feel like adding it. I love the idea of these little orange flowers here and there. Look at this. Oh, I just love it. And again, if you have to go back and add more, feel free. Or if you want to skip entirely, you don't want to use the orange, I would suggest using the orange because it's also teaching us how to play inside color theory, which is so important. I know it's a stinker to learn sometimes, but it really, once you get it and you can kind of see it in your head, you know which colors look good next to each other, like contrasting colors and complementary colors. It adds another depth to your paintings. So I'm going to go back in and with my Viridian and a mix of Viridian and Prussian. And I'm going to go in because I want a little more definition on some of my grass blades. Okay. I love how some of this, you can see in the corner in the right, where some of those kind of melded together. Oh my gosh, so pretty. So just as you will, or if you don't necessarily need to, you don't have to. But I do, usually go back in at this point and add a little more definition. And then I'm going to hit it with a hairdryer, since I'm really happy with where I've gotten that definition, and those orange flowers look awesome. Just make sure it's completely dry, and we're going to bring that X-Acto knife right back out, and in some of the spritzing and stuff, some of my sgraffito got covered up again by color and water. So I'm going to go back in and just create some more texture on the page. And this time, I think I might bring it down a little further. So sometimes I just want to see it in other places than just the edge where you can see the tall grasses. I'm going to create the illusion of grass with this graffito technique further in the page, just for fun, just for funsies, just to see what it looks like. And don't worry about if you make a little, see where I kind of like dug up a little too much paper, there's a white speck. It's totally fine because we're going to add more white specks later. So yeah, just go through and knock yourself out, making all kinds of fun little scratchy blades of grass. All right, now for our final step, and one of my favorites, albeit messy, it is so fun. So I want you to take your ink, and like I've said before, this stuff separates. You're gonna have to give it a good shake. I'm gonna shake it there off camera a little bit, keep shaking it. Okay, shouldn't take more than like 5 seconds of shaking. Okay, I want you to put 2 droppers full. Okay, and now you can use a couple of different methods. I typically start with a toothbrush and go in and create fun little small dots and more of a spray. It's more of a spray effect and not just big dots on the page. Or you can go straight in and tap it, okay? So any round brush will do, okay? And this is just the tiniest bit damp. It really is not very damp at all because you want more ink than water. You don't want to tone down the opacity of this ink. So you take that, and then we're just going to go tap, 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 all over the page. See, that's what I was saying earlier. Don't worry if you pull up a little bit too much of the paper when you're making this graffito grass blades, because we're going to cover some of that up with ink anyways. No big deal. So I've got that going. And sometimes when you have a bigger brush, and I'm using a smaller brush to tap, it won't get off the paint as much. This is what I've discovered. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in. I've got some good paint going there, but I want to get a bunch of paint on my wonderful brush. And then I'm going to take my big boy round brush, and I'm just going to get to tapping on that too, because I want some more up in like towards the horizon on the right hand side. I want to see a little more white there too. So like I said, take your round brush, dip it in a lot of that ink, and then I want you to take your big boy round brush and start tapping away, because that's going to actually give you a better splatter. And be okay with being messy. The good thing about this, the calligraphy ink, is it washes out of everything. It doesn't stain anything. So it's all over the place in my house, but all I have to do is take a wet rag and get it off. So, and there you have it. I am super, super happy with how this turned out. And I'm super excited to see how y'all's version of this turns out. Let me know if you have any questions about products or technique. Leave them down in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Y'all have a great rest of your day or evening, and I will see you soon. Bye.